Hi guys, I'm Alex Holmstrom, and this is the Alex at Bat podcast. When it comes to anything to do with current, athletic, throwback, or current sports news, we will always be at bat. In today's episode, we will be discussing about NFL free agency and about what happened with the Sixers when Joel Embiid was not playing, about how they got like scored on with 20 points or something like that. It's next up. And we got Jason Holmstrom, by the way.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Can't forget about him.
all right, well, let's kick it off with the free agency. So, it's just like, I guess this free agency thing, just the free agency train just keeps on going. There were some more moves made this week, I'm assuming, that you have to talk about, that you're going to share with us today. So, let it rip. What happened?
So we had NFL free agency is going to keep on going on. You heard some more rumors about Lamar Jackson. I heard on March 2nd, he said he wanted to request this trade out of Baltimore Ravens.
So, like, where did he say where he might want to land?
No, he didn't just say it. He just said that he requested a trade.
Because I'm hearing on the sports shows a lot of people are saying nobody wants him, or that it's not that nobody wants him. Of course, somebody wants him, but that people want to know what the deal is. Like, there's a lot of people that feel as though there's mystery surrounding him as to why the Ravens haven't shown him the love that many people feel his talent deserves.
Absolutely. I feel like it's just been a whole mess this offseason about like Lamar Jackson. They haven't made a lot of moves in free agency this year as well, but they just signed a receiver and that was pretty much it. And they re-signed some players. They didn't really like go out and get a lot of like different players from different NFL teams so far.
What is it with the Jackson thing though? Not to like stay on this too long, but what is it? Is it a durability issue with injuries? Is it a team chemistry kind of issue? He's not the leader that they want at the QB position. What is it? They feel like he's past his prime or something. I mean, that can't be. I mean, the guy's he's not even 30 years old, right?
No, he's not even 30 years old yet. It's still kind of like a a mystery of why they're not wanting to resign him. They signed to some non-exclusive franchise tag, and that means that like it looks like he's franchise tag, but he can still search for other teams. It's just been a mess. We don't really know like why exactly. The Ravens haven't really franchise tagged him. There's no like real reason to it. It's just that they haven't. John Harbaugh, the Ravens head coach, said he's trying to keep Lamar Jackson to play, for the season. But you hear a bunch of different things. You hear him saying about how he wants to request a trade. You hear his coach saying that how there's a good chance he'll be the starter week 1 of the 2023 NFL season. So you just hear a bunch of different stuff. So you don't really know what's true yet until we get closer to the season. And
just gonna have to see how it shakes out. What else? What else is going on?
So I was impressed. I was just saying this about a couple days ago, not on here or anything, but about some Eagles moves they made. They extended Lane Johnson to an extra year on his contract, and his contract runs through 2026. They got some. They got another safety. He played for the Steelers the last 5 years. Terrell Edmonds. He I heard he was a good safety duo with other Steelers safety Minka Fitzpatrick. So they're definitely. I like that they are bringing in some competition for that safety position for the Eagles because they'll definitely need it. I definitely don't think. I heard people were saying, this will give a good chance for Reed Blankenship to compete, and I think that is the case. But I don't want to just, if I was the Eagles, I'm probably thinking the same thing Howie Roseman's thinking, but I'm thinking that I don't want to just give him the spot because, yeah, he picked off Aaron Rodgers, but so have a lot of bad players picked off Aaron Rodgers. So that really, didn't change my mind, made me think like, oh yeah, he is a good safety just because he picked off Aaron Rodgers last year.
So we were driving back from Philadelphia on Saturday morning, listening to 97.3, and the commentators there were talking about how Darius Slay and others. Actually, I think Eskin was talking about it. We were listening to Howard Eskin too on the way in to the Philly 5K, and then listening to 97.3 on the way out of Philly from the 5K, and both radio shows were addressing the rumors swirling around on Twitter, namely Darius Slay's feed and some others of the like about a potential quarterback or not quarterback, running back coming Eagles' way from enemy territory.
Yes. So we got to talk about that one, of course. So Ezekiel Elliot, he's been the running back for the Cowboys the last
How do you feel about that?
7 seasons. So they were talking about one of the teams, Ezekiel Elliott listed the teams he wanted to play for. I believe it was the Jets, Eagles, Bengals, and some other team. And I forget who it is. But I would say if he wasn't on the Philadelphia Eagles, which would be totally weird, but if that did happen, cool. Um, so I would definitely say, like, if I'm the Howie Roseman, if I'm bringing in Ezekiel Elliott for whatever reason, I'm bringing him on like a cheap 1 year deal, not giving him a lot of money because, as we know, the last couple of years he's not looked great. He wasn't the same, and it's been proven in the NFL, the last decades. Running backs have probably one of the shortest NFL's careers just because it's either maybe they don't run that fast as they used to. They're not more shifty, when they get in the later part of their career, and they just can't, run as fast as they used to.
I mean, their whole position is predicated upon lateral motion and speed. And if you don't have, if your joints are going on you and you don't have that lateral motion, or you've just been beat up over the years and you don't got that speed, or those fast twitch muscles kind of as you get older, kind of age a little bit and slow down. The other thing is, I think we were talking about it too on the way back from Philly on Saturday, was that the running backs are typically smaller guys. I mean, they're built, they're like spark plugs, they're muscular dudes, but you're usually looking at a guy that's, I mean, like 5'10's a tall running back, right? I mean, usually they're like 5'8, 5'9 in that area, and they're getting tackled by the biggest guys on the field. It's not like a wide receiver getting covered out there by a cornerback or somebody like that, where it's a more slender sprinter type guy covering you on the defensive end. When you get brought down, you get brought down by the biggest men out on that field. And that's got to take a toll. And I think for Ezekiel Elliott, plus, I mean, I think he's even while he's been in the Cowboys uniform, even early on, the team chemistry thing and how he fits into a team type atmosphere versus personal accolades, I think that's always been a question with him. So and the other thing that was very interesting was that the guy on 97.3, I can't remember his name, but he just off the top of his head rambled off a list of probably 10 Cowboys that we've acquired over the years and how they ended up just being, for lack of I don't like the term, but for lack of a better term, trash. They just weren't any good. We rarely get a Cowboy, if ever, that ends up working out any better than he did on the Cowboys, let alone, do anything on the Eagles. So that's that. Anything else going on in the world of free agency football?
So I would say definitely the whole Eagles thing, about how they're bringing in some more depth, helping in the safety role. Before we go on, with the whole Cowboys and Eagles, former Cowboys joining the Eagles, like, there's been some like big player named to join the Eagles, and it was either like, their comments about the team, like, people were upset about, or like the way how they played, especially with DeMarco Murray. Do you remember who he is?
No.
He was one of their running backs who was drafted before Elliott. Okay. He got to the Eagles, and that was a whole mess. And then a couple years ago, Orlando Scandrick, he played for the Cowboys his first 10 years, and then went to the Chiefs, and then came to the Eagles, and then he played for a couple games.
What position did he play?
He played cornerback, and he was not playing well at the end of his time with the Cowboys.
So the Eagles got him like 12 years into his career?
Exactly. Like, he got drafted in 2008, and then he joined the Eagles in 2019. and I just don't understand. Like, he was not good, like, towards the end of his time with the Cowboys. That's probably why they released him, because he was so bad. He was getting burnt by, like, every receiver he went up against.
Great. And then the Eagles come along.
Yeah, and then 2 years later, the Eagles like, yeah, let's sign this dude. We have injuries at cornerback.
Hey, hopefully they learn from that lesson and they're not going to go pick
Yeah,
up Elliot.
and then he had some he says some nasty things about the other Eagles players, about how that they're too much on the Eagles Super Bowl hype. After we won the Super Bowl, he said they're not committed to winning. They're still on that going back in time type of thing.
Yeah, reliving the past.
Or
living in the past.
Yeah, and then he was complaining about how Malcolm Jenkins is a selfish leader, blah, blah, blah. So he was just bringing like a toxic environment to the Eagles. And then, of course, people are going to think because it's a robbery thing, they're still living in that Cowboys, you know, way pretty much. So definitely, that would be weird if, Ezekiel Elliott came to the Eagles, but it would be cool, I guess, if he did. But I definitely was really impressed with the Eagles recently. Definitely the Lions, man. They've really stepped it up in free agency, especially their market, with all the, they don't have as much money as the big cities, New Orleans, all these other places. They don't have the money that other teams have, and they still are making a lot of moves and a lot of good ones too. I'm really impressed with them. I've been impressed with the Denver Broncos about some of the moves they made recently. They got some offensive line help. So I'm definitely impressed with that. I think that I know I talked to you about recently about how like the Broncos I think are gonna look a little different this year with the
way different with Payton now.
Way different with Payton. He's very good at managing quarterbacks.
High profile
quarterbacks. So I definitely feel like it's gonna be a different year for the Denver Broncos, with Sean Payton is leading the way. I think the problem was with the Denver Broncos ever since Manning retired, Peyton Manning. He, one, they had quarterback issues. They could never find a good quarterback, and they could never find a good head coach to work with the quarterback. First I could name, like, it was so many quarterbacks after Manning retired. You had Trevor Siemian, you had Paxton Lynch, who was injured for almost his whole rookie season. That's actually who the Cowboys wanted instead of drafting Dak Prescott, and everyone was lucky that turned out.
Who was it?
Paxton Lynch. He was just injured. He got benched in every single league. He's been in XFL, CFL, NFL, and I think in college football maybe. So like, he was definitely a mess when he got into the NFL. They had Brock Osweiler. So
Okay.
and then the list goes on and on with all these different quarterbacks the Denver Broncos had. So I think the one thing they needed to find was a good quarterback that could stay with them for a couple, at least maybe a couple years, and head coach who can work well with that team. I think they found all those pieces. I feel like the last time they were really like all that was when Kubiak was the coach, Gary Kubiak.
I mean, I just feel they give me the sense that I can't imagine Russell Wilson's going to be playing for too many more years. I mean, probably productive years if he hopefully has some left in him. I mean, 2 to 3. And the same thing with Peyton. I mean, I know Peyton came out of retirement to join the Broncos, and a lot of people were excited to see what happens there, myself included. But I can't imagine him taking the Broncos on for like another 10 years or something like that. He's no spring chicken, and he's been in the NFL. He's kind of been there, done that. I think he's coming out because he sees a unique challenge with a unique talent in Russell Wilson, and there's a lot of other pieces that they put in place. There was high expectations with him, and I think Peyton's like, you know what, they kind of crapped out on their expectations last year, but I think I can get them to where everybody thought they were supposed to be this year.
Absolutely. And then, you heard about, everyone was excited when the Broncos got Russell Wilson last year. Broncos traded like 3 players, I think, 3 or 2 players, traded a lot of draft picks for him. And everyone kept on saying, like, man, Russell Wilson must have robbed the Broncos. And I think that Nathaniel Hackett was their coach last year. And then there was like some big culture problem, man. Like, it was just a mess for the Broncos. Their offensive line was terrible, and there was just problems left and right. So I think now with Sean Payton, I think maybe not all the problems are going to be fixed, but I definitely think that things are going to start to get better. I think that they definitely need a culture change for the Denver Broncos. They got some new ownership now, so we'll see how it goes from there for the Denver Broncos.
All right, let's switch gears out of NFL free agency and into NBA, particularly our Sixers. I know that there was a couple statistics that we heard on the way home, again on 97.3, that kind of piqued our interest and shined a light on some of the issues that the Sixers, it seems like, inevitably always have in the heading down the late season stretch into the postseason. Number one is injuries. Harden got hurt, I guess, in the game against the Bulls, has Achilles issues. He'd been out 14 games earlier in the year with an ankle sprain. And a lot of people are questioning why Doc Rivers kept him in that game against the Bulls for so long, particularly when that ankle injury earlier in the year was precipitated by a similar type move. He didn't look like himself. He hadn't been playing well in that case and in this case, and they just kept him in the game. And then what happens? He's out. For how long? We don't know. Doc Rivers says he might be suiting up against the Nuggets coming up. Embiid won't be. But I guess I probably Embiid more for just resting him. I don't know of any actual injury that they're saying he needs to rest, although I know he hasn't been 100%. He looked good against the Warriors. He had 46 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. They lost to the Warriors 121-112 not a few days back. But so he personally looked good, kept up those MVP stats. But the thing that was of real concern was the depth. There's no depth with the Sixers. You know, Harden was out. Tyrese Maxey's not a true point guard. I think he had like maybe 3 assists. So he's not able to dish the ball off in the same way Harden is. And without Embiid on the court, remember what they said the point differential was?
Yeah, it was like 20-0, right?
It was like, well, it was 20-point differential, meaning in a 10-minute block when Embiid was out of the game, the Golden State Warriors scored 20 more points than the Sixers. I mean, that's insanity. You know, a basketball game at that rate, you're talking like 100 to nothing, basically, or 100-point differential over the course of an entire basketball game. So it's really wild. It'll, again, you know, I'm not going to go trash in the Sixers because you can't really predict injuries, but it will be interesting to see how these guys handle it. I know Tucker hasn't been looking great. Didn't look good against the Suns. I think he missed like every shot he basically took, and they lost to the Suns as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Doc Rivers kind of shuffles them around. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What are your thinking on the Sixers' woes?
I definitely think that depth is definitely an issue for the Sixers because, you know, once Joel Embiid went out for the 10-minute period, the Sixers just straight up collapsed. And I literally think if I'm doing the math right, so 20 points in 10 minutes, so that's like around 2 points maybe per minute. That if I'm doing the math right, and that still is not really, you know, great at all. So I definitely think that the Sixers need to get, you know, everything's together because, you know, we all thought, you know, Joel Embiid does kind of get injured or, you know, towards the end of the season, and it happens every year. And I mean, like, it's not even really for like Joel Embiid. It's not even about the MVP race.
Nah, at this point, who cares? And they clinched the playoff. I mean,
Yeah.
they have their spot in the playoff, so that's not a concern. Which is why I think he's going to be sitting out against the Nuggets. I mean, that would be if he was really concerned about the MVP. I mean, he would go head to head with Jokic there when they play the Nuggets. But at this point, Embiid and the rest of the team just want to see a healthy Embiid. They want to see a healthy group of Sixers. So they really have nothing to prove in the games leading up to the playoffs, aside from trying to stay fresh and stay active. But you're seeing guys like Furkan Korkmaz. Is that his name? Yeah. He got the first. Man, I couldn't even tell you the last time I saw that guy in the rotation, but he was out there. So they're getting guys that have been riding the bench for most of the year back out there to try to cover some of the minutes as the other players, you know, their starting 5 get their rest.
Absolutely. And I think that's what they need towards the end of the season. It's not like football where you play only like 17 games now in the NFL. It's now you play like 82 games during the year.
Yeah, no, I mean nobody plays 82 games anymore. Like
But
no players play
yeah,
82 games.
but you
yeah.
play way more than 17 game or 17 games, per
Right.
year. So like I definitely think that, towards the end of the year your body starts to get beat up, and that, that's always proven to be the case for Embiid, because when your body gets beat up, you get you're more injury prone towards the end of the season and stuff
Of
like that.
course.
So I definitely think that definitely resting and let the other guys play is the only way how you'll keep the Sixers healthy for the playoffs, and their goal is obviously to have a long playoff run. Hopefully that playoff run leads to an NBA Finals championship. But
That'd be cool.
that would definitely be cool, and I definitely think that if they want to get there, they have to have their five starters be 100% healthy to make that be the case. I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about Harden and his history, especially with the ankle, Achilles history. I'm concerned about the depth and how that affects. I mean, really, they don't have much backing up Embiid, but they really, as good as Tyrese Maxey is, he's just not Harden when it comes to the point guard position. So it will be interesting. I will be interested to see, especially in the beginning of the playoffs, how Tyrese Maxey does try to take on some of that point guard role a little bit more, or who actually tries to take it on. I don't know. I don't know if they'll kind of push Maxi into that role, kind of try to force it out of him, or whether they'll just go to some more seasoned veterans and try to get it going from that spot. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how how everything goes for the Philadelphia 76ers. So definitely, I guess, a lot to look forward to, especially with the playoffs not that far away. So this will end our episode right here. This is the end of our episode talking about some NFL news and some NBA news about the Philadelphia 76ers. We will see you next episode. Goodbye.